Well, now Mike Bell has to go down as delivering one of the worst scorecards in recent memory. It was a close fight. It all came down to what it seemed like the 4th round. That's the round that the judges were disagreeing on. First round went to Shevchenko, very close though. Second round easily went to Grasso. She dropped Shevchenko, landing good knees and punches in the clinch to win that round easily. The third round was domination for Shevchenko. Took Grasso to the ground, nearly got a guillotine that was super tight, got the back, went for rear naked chokes, and then went for the armbar at the end of the round. The 4th round was probably the most competitive. People think Grasso may have won it, people thought Shevchenko would have won it. You saw many fans and fighters say that the fight was 2-2 going to the 5th because they gave the 4th round to Grasso. Then the 5th round seemed like it was going to Shevchenko. She was landing a lot of good jabs, landing most of the strikes, and then went in for the dreaded head and arm throw, miscalculated it, and got her back taken, almost submitted by a rear naked choke. Grasso stole the 5th round 100%. And here's how the judges scored the fight. Sal D'Amato gave it 48-47 for Shevchenko, rounds 1, 3, and 4. Junichiro Kamijo scored it for Grasso, giving her round 2, 4, and 5. Then Mike Bell scored it 47-47, giving Shevchenko rounds 1, 3, and 4. He gave her 3 rounds out of 5, and then gave Grasso round 2 and 5. And had the gall to score the 5th round 10-8? In what world is the 5th round a 10-8? For over 3 minutes of that round, Shevchenko was easily winning it. It looked like Grasso was slow, it looked like she was starting to get tired, she wasn't really landing any of her shots. Shevchenko was pumping jabs in her face the whole time. And then Grasso got her back, went for the rear naked choke, seemed to almost get it. It was hard to tell how close the grip was because of the camera angle, landed a lot of good punches there too. But there's no way that's a 10-8 round. In fact, I don't think any of the rounds were 10-8. I would actually say rounds 2 and 3 have a better argument to be 10-8 than round 5. Round 2 for Grasso, not only dropping Shevchenko, but then landing a plethora of knees to the body and punches to the head, and also those leg kicks when she's on the ground. She clearly won that round by a wide margin. Shevchenko did not have nearly as many moments in the 2nd round compared to what she had in the 5th. And then in the 3rd round, Shevchenko dominated the whole round from beginning to end. And still, I wouldn't give either of those rounds 10-8. But you give the 5th round 10-8 for Grasso? Yo, I don't know where he was spending his time for the Mexican independence, but it seemed like he had a little too good of a time where it made him biased, because there's absolutely no way. It was a close fight, it was a good fight, a lot better than we expected. And ultimately, let's go down and look at that 4th round, just to clear up any kind of confusion here. So as you know, we have to score the fight by the judging criteria. When it comes to effective striking, damage trumps all. That means even lacerations, cuts, cosmetic damage, but more importantly, reactions from getting hit are going to be the main thing that we're going to be looking for when it comes to damage. And when we look at effective grappling, it's the fighter who got closer to finishing the fight, whoever contributed to end the match. Any kind of grappling sequence that can potentially end the match. A good example would be getting someone's back, right? Getting someone's back is a good indicator of effective grappling, as it's arguably the most dominant position you can get in grappling. And in order to score the strikes as accurate as possible, we're going to be categorizing every single strike in accordance to damage, light, medium, and heavy. The light are not really going to matter too much. Medium is not going to matter too much unless there's not any heavy strikes. If we see heavy strikes, then the lights are never going to matter. So let's get right into that 4th round. The first strike that lands is from Grasso, throwing a right hand to the chest. This really doesn't cause much impact at all. Then almost 50 seconds later, the next strike lands for Grasso, a slapping inside leg kick, another strike that really didn't cause damage, returned by a very similar kind of strike from Shevchenko, a touching inside leg kick. The Shevchenko follows us up with 2 jabs of her own. One was a little bit more aggressive, one is countering. Grasso also threw a couple jabs, but it does seem like they both miss. But Grasso follows that up with a straight left as Shevchenko is moving all the way back, leaning as far as she can away from it, decreasing the impact so it just touches Shevchenko on the chin at the very end of the punch. Shevchenko was able to counter her with a check right hook, turning her head around from the punch. Shevchenko then follows that up with a step-in jab and is able to fade away. When you go back and watch the whole fight, you do see Shevchenko having a lot of success with her jab. Then Grasso lands a very good outside leg kick, taking away Shevchenko's balance. This I would categorize as a medium attack. Now it looks like Shevchenko hits her at the top of the forehead with a jab, and it may have bounced off of it, but it could have missed as well on the full extension. Kinda hard to tell because of the camera angle, but it's not going to really make any difference to who won the round. Then Grasso was able to counter her with a slapping right hook at the end of the punch as Shevchenko was moving away from it, just touches her her on the chin with not even a full fist. A touching inside leg kick from Shevchenko, then a jab from Shevchenko as Grasso is moving away from it, touches her at the top of the forehead as well, really no damage from this punch. Then they both land jabs on each other, both not really much impact, but Shevchenko was able to follow hers up with a left straight at the end of the punch, and then Grasso attempts to retaliate with a left straight, only to get countered by Shevchenko's right hook. The left straight from Shevchenko in that sequence was definitely the biggest punch there. 2 jabs from Shevchenko lands, and then Grasso comes back with an outside leg kick. None of these strikes were that damaging. And then we go to the sequence where Shevchenko's takedown was stuffed and Grasso was throwing knees at her. So you were probably led to believe that a lot of these knees landed clean when actually most of them did not. And we can look at every single knee right here. So as you can see, Shevchenko is touching the ground with her right hand, and in some states, just like the one they were fighting in, one hand on the ground does not mean you're a grounded fighter. You need both hands on the ground. But Shevchenko only had one, so she was allowed to get kneed. First knee goes past the head and hits toward the traps. Second knee hit the back of the head, which is entirely Grasso's fault because Shevchenko's back of the head is only exposed. She can't really do much to move her head away. The third knee misses and actually hits her own arm. The fourth knee grazes like the top back of the head. Fifth knee lands pretty clean toward the ear. Sixth knee grazes the back of the head. Those were all the knees in that sequence. So one of them landed clean, 3 of them partially or fully landed to the back of the head, and 2 of them missed. So that one knee that actually did land, we're going to categorize that one as a medium strike. But just like we don't count illegal strikes to the groin, we don't count illegal strikes to the back of the head that were blatant like this. This is not the same as throwing a head kick and it catches them to the back of the head because the opponent moved a certain way. In this position, Shevchenko is not really moving anywhere. She can't. And Grasso is still kneeing her to the back of the head. Then in the clinch up against the fence, Grasso lands a knee to the body, not much power in it. 2 punches to the face, kind of slapping, not much behind those. Then a decent knee toward the chest area, like upper abdomen chest area, not much power behind this one. She didn't drive her knee as much for it, and didn't get that much of a reaction, but it's heavier than just a light strike. Then Grasso lands another 7 punches to the head. Shevchenko lands 1 of her own. And here's some effective grappling from Grasso. Lifts up Shevchenko and slams her. Attempts to get the armbar, but not even close at all. Shevchenko is able to rotate and turn into her, getting on top. And on the ground, Shevchenko lands 5 extremely light punches. And in the clinch, they both land 5 light strikes on each other, nothing big in there at all. Grasso landed some punches, 1 knee, and Shevchenko was landing palm strikes. And then when Grasso was looking to exit the clinch, Shevchenko lands a big elbow. Now this is the strike that opens up the cut. This elbow cuts up Alexa Grasso, and it has some meaningful impact too, making this a heavy strike. And knowing from the judging criteria, cuts are very big to score for impact. It specifically states about cuts and lacerations, so we're gonna have to score that strike as a heavy when it comes to damage. Grasso then returns to the right straight of her own. Then they both trade shots on each other. Grasso lands an inside leg kick, doesn't really get much of a reaction, and Shevchenko is able to catch her off balance with a jab square to the face. Now Grasso actually lands pretty good with a jab of her own, catches Shevchenko square to the jaw, causing her to stumble back after the punch, but it's also because Shevchenko threw a left of her own that missed. There's an argument some people could say this is a medium, but I would put it in between a light and medium, as some of the unbalance there was because of Shevchenko missing her own punch right after getting hit. A jab from Shevchenko and she follows it up with another touching inside leg kick. Doesn't cause really any damage. Then Grasso throws an outside leg kick, which looks like, because if we see the angle of Shevchenko's posture and Grasso's kick, it looks like it may have landed toward the knee, causing it to get checked. But the camera angle doesn't really let us see the exact point of contact. Then Shevchenko moves forward with a lunging right hook to set up her left hand, and the right hook just grazes the side of the head of Grasso. Then they both land on each other. Grasso lands a jab and Shevchenko lands a right hook. Now they both land jabs on each other, constantly trading their lead hands. Then Shevchenko is able to follow up, getting the last strike of the sequence with a jab at the top of the forehead. Grasso does a really good job of lowering her chin, which really only opens up that front top part of the forehead, which is really thick. It's hard to hurt someone when you land a punch there. And here we get to the biggest strike of the round so far. So Shevchenko slips on the outside of Grasso's jab, also trying to parry it at the same time. She honestly adjusted to that 1-2 that she had a lot of problems with in the first fight. threw the counter left straight that glances off the shoulder and then off of the side of the head, and with full momentum moving forward at Grasso, she bombs her with a right hook that briefly wobbles Grasso. This was easily the biggest strike of the entire round. Outside leg kick from Grasso, then they both graze a jab at each other, and toward the end of the round, Shevchenko trips Grasso, gets her to the ground. Is that a glove grab I see from Shevchenko? It's hard to tell if she's grabbing onto the wrist or the glove itself. Then in the clinch, after Grasso gets up, Grasso lands 2 strikes from there. Shevchenko lands 4 knees to the leg. Then at the end of the round, Grasso flips for a heel hook. Never really got it. Didn't really get a good extension on it. Shevchenko wasn't in too much danger here, but she at least did go for it, so it does count for effective grappling somewhat, and that ends the 4th round. Tallying up all the damage and looking at the effective grappling here, Valentina Shevchenko landed a total of 5 more light strikes, Grasso landed 2 more medium strikes, Shevchenko had the only 2 heavy strikes of the round, and 6 more total strikes landed, but the total and the light are not really going to matter at all here. We have to only look at the medium and the heavy because Grasso landed no heavy strikes, her biggest shots were medium strikes, but Shevchenko has 2 heavy, one that wobbled Grasso momentarily, and another one that caused a cut. If you look at the scoring system, it specifically lays out that lacerations and cuts are big for impact. Even if it's a jab or something like that, she cut up the side of the eye of Grasso, which is going to dictate that as a heavy strike, showing that she did more damage against Grasso than the other way around. Now, Grasso did have the heel hook, but it wasn't really that close. Shevchenko wasn't in that much danger. If we're going to compare the submissions to the striking system here, it would be like in between a light and medium. And she also did have a good slam, right? That slam was pretty nice. But Shevchenko also got a takedown of her own. And I know some people might be looking back at the knees, but we do not count strikes to the back of the head. Even if we do, only one of those were meaningful, right? There was one big knee directly to the back of the head. If we're going to give her another medium strike for that, all those other grazing knees were light, at most between light and medium, if we're going to be generous to Grasso, but Mike Bell already was a little too generous to Alexa Grasso. Even if you give some of those knees to the back of the head for Grasso, she still loses the round. So we have to score this round a 10-9 for Valentina Shevchenko. So did the judges get this fight correct? They did not. Shockingly, Sal D'Amato was the only one that scored the fight correctly. Shevchenko should have won rounds 1, 3, and 4 with no 10-8 rounds for either fighter. And now it's probably going to line up a trilogy between these two and maybe have Erin Blanchfield and all these other contenders fight each other in the meantime before we get this whole thing sorted out. And for sure, we got to get some new judges. So hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown, and if you did, make sure to give this a like, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video.